Okay. Yeah, Margo, I was on a call with other property managers about lunchtime today, and other people were saying there is some interest in the market, and they're having some success with rentals, which is,
Wow.
positive. It's maybe a good sign. People are sort of adjusting a little bit, and they're starting to settle into this and understand that if you need a new apartment, it's not such a bad thing to go looking for one. So maybe we'll have some luck.
Yeah, I would expect rents would be lower.
Right.
For sure.
Well, it hasn't come to pass yet that the rents are dramatically lower. Most people are still holding their breath and hoping that it doesn't that it isn't going to change too much, and trying to be patient, as we all know the reasons behind that. So, it's a start.
Well, you're doing good work in the process anyway, whatever you can do.
Thank you. Yeah, we're trying to hang on.
Hi, JJ.
Hi, Bert. How are you?
Fine.
Good. Thanks for joining us. Josh, how are you? Oh,
hey, JJ, I'm good.
Good.
Good to see everyone.
Antonio's there. Ken Prager's there. Hi, Ken. How are you?
Hello.
And Ron and Nancy.
Hello.
All right. Let's see. We're a couple of minutes ahead of schedule, so we can just chat. How's everybody's week been?
Very busy.
Yes, as we'll hear now.
Hey, are we going to talk about the Texas thing that they're reopening at that? Is that happening? Do we have any news about San Francisco or California or anything like that? Reopening?
You mean the controversy of states wanting to reopen?
Right.
I think we should send COVID-19 patients to those reopening events. Like, how dumb can you be to think that your sacrifice of staying home is too much for everybody else?
Amazing. Yeah.
Hi, Bobby.
Yeah, Texas's lieutenant governor was on Fox News a couple of weeks ago saying, "Did anybody ask us senior citizens whether we wanted to be, whether we were willing to be sacrificed for our grandchildren's economic future?" And I'm going, "You really want to trade your life for money? Okay, that's fine. You can do that."
Nuts.
That's Texas, I mean,
Yes,
that's why we live here.
that is true.
Well, the real irony in there is that when there's an article in the New York Times, and when they interviewed all these people, their issue was not bringing the economy back. It was the violation of their civil rights.
Correct.
The issue was their civil rights. It was not the economy. That was not driving them at all for doing that.
Yes.
Not get into
We'll just give it another minute or two, and then we'll get started. We'll give the political update and talk a little bit about a few things that are going on and the direction of the discussions, and then open it up for dialogue and conversation with everybody.
By the way, JJ, I don't know if you've had this feedback from others, but I think these conferences are working out very, very well.
Well,
Definitely appreciate them.
Yes.
Thank you very much for saying so. I really appreciate that. And I've found it to be really a great way to keep in touch with those of my clients who really want to be involved and want to know what's going on. And I really appreciate you guys wanting to be involved and taking an interest. And so this format is easy, and it's a lot of fun, and it's working out really well. I'm excited for it. So thank you for joining me.
it's especially good for those of us who no longer live in San Francisco, and I'm in Palm Springs, and I get no San Francisco news. So this has been a great source of the news. So thank you for that.
Excellent. You're most welcome. I'm glad you can join us and stay informed here and stay involved. Thank you. All right. Well, it's 3 after. Let's get started. Welcome, everybody. It's good to see you. Thanks for joining me. We are, we're making our way through this process of trying to figure out what's going to happen and dealing with the political realities as well as the economic realities. I sent an email to all of our tenants just a few minutes ago, letting them know that we really appreciate if they are going to be having any trouble, letting us know, and that we're going to do everything we can to be as kind and gentle as we possibly can through the process, and that we will defer and or forgive in the future after we understand the full extent of all of this, and that we are encouraging them to be proactive and not make us chase them. It seems through the industry, I did have a call this afternoon with many of my colleagues in the industry, in the Professional Property Management Association of San Francisco, that most people seem to be having a similar experience. Other people may have more tenants who are sort of hiding from the process or not wanting to engage in the conversations. But so far, a lot of people seem to be pretty positive in that direction. Interestingly, the couple of the legal situations that we've been involved with, the Assembly Bill 828 by Phil Ting that would have mandated a 25% rent reduction across the board that I discussed last time, led Mr. Ting to receive over 30,000 letters from all of us protesting that measure through the California Apartment Association's link that I shared through the comments on this video, and I think I also shared it through the chat last time. But if you haven't already made a mention of your displeasure with that measure, I would assume that all of you would feel that way. Please do go ahead and fill out that simple form through the Apartment Association to let them know that you don't agree. We are waiting to see what happens legislatively through the next week or two leading up to the 1st of May and then in the first week of May. And with that, I think I'll just ask Denise to step in and let us know what's going on with regard to Preston legislation, which I think is the one thing that really is the most important thing for us to stay focused on right now. Let us know how we can get involved and talk a little bit more about that legislation. So Denise, are you ready to take that away?
Hey, JJ, real quick before we get started here, can we have everybody please mute themselves here?
Or I can mute everybody if we're having issues with that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, I don't have any great update. This is winding its way through the process, and taking it into Oakland, it's not going to surprise us that Mr. Preston is going to get his way. And so I guess the concern is that there is going to be an inability to terminate occupancy due to non-payment of rent, and also having it waived. So that is only presumably through the process of the emergency orders, but we don't know yet. That will wind its way around. And I don't have any particular update on that, nor do I have any particular update on the issue pertaining to the order being in violation of the judicial process order, the judicial executive emergency orders that came down from the state judiciary. So that's still winding its way. We're waiting on the city attorney representing the mayor's office regarding that. We have provided the necessary language to very easily clarify the mayor's order so as to allow us to secure any agreements that we create for rent forbearance or quote unquote forgiveness or repayment, I should say. Then there's another issue that just came to pass. I don't know how familiar anybody is regarding Senate Bill 1410, I believe. I just wrote down the number, 1410, Senate Bill 1410, by a legislator in Southern California who's creating a fund that will guarantee 80% of the rent payments to the landlords participating in the program. However, the landlords would then need to waive the other 20% of rent if they participate in the program. So essentially it's being put together a big fund of monies that the state will allow the tenants to pay their landlords at least 80% of their rent for no more than 3 months. Then the program ends. And if landlords want to participate in that program, then they must waive 20% of the rent. So that's an example of all the different machinations from all the different entities, city, state, who knows what the feds are going to do, if anything, for us regarding all the laws for rent deferment.
Wow, that's a complicated process. Who's to say how they could possibly guarantee that they'd have enough money for all the people who wanted to participate in such a program? And how could they make that clear? I mean, 80% is better than nothing, and I think we may find ourselves looking at nothing before long. But that would be a very complicated process. Which, you know, it's good to see that they're trying to step in. I think a lot of the conversation that I've heard around rent strikes and things like that has been simply to try to put pressure on government agencies to try to do something bigger than just suspend evictions and to provide money. But I don't know how they do that. That sounds complicated and difficult.
Yes, I completely agree. I don't understand how they're going to do it either. I have not read the legislation. It's still going through the process of review, but that's being proposed.
Okay. And then as far as the forbearance agreements go, is the just to make sure that my understanding of what we're doing with these is accurate, are we still just waiting until we get to an end point where we know that the shelter in place has been lifted, then to approach the tenants to receive these forbearance agreements and get them secured? Or are we may not be able to do anything with them, and the securing of the forbearance agreement may be moot by the time we get to May. Is that correct?
It's possible, but we do believe that Manu will get back to us, that he's the city attorney, the assistant city attorney who is working with us regarding clarification of the mayor's order. There's no doubt that he understands the concern. He understands how our argument is that the mayor may not exercise her powers, which is, she's an executive. She's in the executive branch of our government. Right. Trying to put her toe in the judicial branch. Correct. And we've brought the attention that she does not have that power. Right. Nor does it make any sense. We believe that it's just sloppy language. Okay. And that she needs to clean up that language so as to maintain the process, which she may not interfere with. He gets it, but it's the politics involved. So he needs to be able to sell that to the powers that be. For clarity purposes, it doesn't give us any more rights than we already would have under the judicial process. We're just asking it to be clarified so we don't increase liability due to the ambiguity of the language. The language currently says that you may not endeavor to evict. Right. Endeavor to evict is literally, legally, the delivery of a notice. Correct. We can't secure our forbearance agreements without the delivery of a notice. And a notice is contemplated in the mayor's order. However, that magic language of unlawful endeavor to evict is creating a conundrum for us, because we would impose liabilities if somebody decides to implement that language and say, hey, you can't do this. So we're just asking for clarity on that. Hopefully we'll have it by April 30th. We suspected we would have it today, but we haven't heard from Manu yet today. Okay. All right. I have a raised hand. Let's see. Nicholas, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
Just a kind of maybe a dumb one. If they're expecting the landlords to forgive rent, why doesn't it go across the board, like a 20% reduction in property tax, a 20% reduction in mortgage, and apply it along the line, down the line, versus just trying to get the money from one person.
I completely agree. Let's get working on that.
Yeah, let's have them reduce all of our bills. But yes, it's mostly that the rent. I think that the issue is the rent is low hanging fruit, and that's
Yes.
the easiest thing that they can get to. And we have to now make pressure on everybody else. But I would personally just recommend not taking it personally, and let's continue to work the process because we have there's a long road before this is all over.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how hopeful we necessarily can be, but we definitely have to be participating in the process. Denise, since you're here, and if other people want to step forward with questions, you're welcome to. I have a couple of other questions that sort of popped up as a part of my call earlier today. One is related to fair housing. Would you, if you're in the process of renting an apartment, someone's applied to look at an apartment, and I'm applying my non-discriminatory screening criteria to the process where I am, I'm simply, hold on one second, there we go. I'm looking at someone's income and I'm saying, look, I've got people who have jobs that appear to be continuing their, they appear to be continuing their process and they'll still have a job, and I can feel pretty comfortable that they're not going to be losing their job anytime in the near future. It's a tech job, they're able to stay employed. If I look deeper than that and I say, well, if I have somebody who maybe appears to still be employed, but they work at a restaurant and they may very well soon lose their employment, am I going to be running into fair housing if perhaps I don't accept somebody's application in that circumstance?
Well, that's a really good question, JJ, especially in our area. I mean, we're not in the middle of Oregon. We're in the middle of San Francisco. And so I think that that is a very interesting question. But if you have standard operating procedures and have made the decision that across the board, you are going to look deeper into the type of employment of an applicant, I think that your concern regarding particular industries would carry. It doesn't have anything to do with the applicant, him or herself, with respect to his person or et cetera, but
Right.
Literally employment. And I think that that's very justified. Employment is absolutely a justification for approval or denial. It's an objective standard.
Okay. Let me see. There was, let me step back for a second. Do we have other people on the call who are interested in asking questions or making comments? All right. I think, let me see. I would, there was another question that I was just going to get to. Assuming that the Preston legislation passes, and just to remind everybody, the Preston legislation would hold that landlords would be unable to evict in the future for any past non-payment of rent if it is COVID-19 related. Would that mean that a secured agreement entered into now or at some point before the shelter-in-place order is lifted would no longer be secured, that the stipulation for entry of judgment would no longer be enforceable?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything we can do to, I mean, I'm not sure that we can necessarily make any pressure on Mr. Preston. Is there anything you could, letter writing? I mean, do you think he'd listen to us? Do you think it matters?
Taking into consideration his background and where he came from, he was as you well know, he was an attorney with the Tenderloin Housing Clinic for many, many years. So he is truly he's a true believer in his heart that many, many things should be free. He is beyond socialist.
Right.
So I don't think that it's going to go very far because his constituency and who he represents also believes that housing should be free, food should be free, medical care should be free, etc. paid for by the government. And so until the government pays you all to house people, we've got a conflict with respect to the philosophical process of where we're going. So I don't really think it's going to go very far. Other political pressure may be you talking to some more reasonable members of the Board of Supervisor and going to the mayor's office. And if there's any way to explain to the mayor that that's not going to happen, that a lot of our landlords do not have mortgages to request consideration from their lenders for. So until the city and county decides to remunerate our landlords, then we've got an automatic conflict in what Preston is trying to do.
Right.
So no, I don't believe it's going to be very helpful to go to Mr. Preston directly.
Good answer. That's what I expected. He's not listening.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have, yes, what's that?
JJ, this is for you and Denise. Either of you could probably answer this, but I have a commercial tenant that paid 0 rent for this month, but is taking in some income, some reduced income. Do you think it's my right to say, hey, if you're down 50% in income and I'm out 100% of my rent, shouldn't I get 50% of my rent from you this month? You think that'd be a fair thing to ask for, or just kind of leave it alone?
I think it's fair to ask for it.
Have they invoked any protections under COVID?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a whole process for commercial tenants, and that's under supplement number 4, which has been further amended by supplement number 8. And when I say supplements, it's the mayor's orders. There's the original order, and then there are 8 subsequent supplements
Yeah.
to clarify how she screwed up, which is exactly what we're asking for supplement number 4.
Yeah.
So if we look at that, Josh, every single deal is different. Every single problem, concern, and request or offer is different for all of our landlords, whether residential or commercial. So let's take a look at the process for commercial to determine what you can and cannot ask for. Interestingly, I have some landlords, irrespective of the fact that they're dealing with residential tenants, the residential tenants that are paying $15,000 and $20,000 a month. So that's more of a different animal than, the kind of the 3-unit mom and pops are getting $25,000 and $3,000 a month. So it's more, there's a certain expectation of financial wherewithal. We did not rely on our owner's income necessarily, but perhaps their other additional liquid assets. So if you're in that boat with respect to your commercial tenants, fair enough. I think you should ask them to, whatever income you're putting in, give me 50% of it. Or, as you know, depending upon the circumstances, you extend the lease and allow them to defer the payment by lease extension and amortizing it over the course of the lease. I have a lot of landlords doing that right now. I have Holiday Inns in San Francisco doing that. So that's an example of what can be happening in the commercial tenancies.
Okay. So extending the lease.
That's assuming your tenant is going to be viable, right?
Right.
So that's the whole issue.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But it's worth approaching. My opinion has been that it's worth approaching a commercial tenant to let them know that it probably behooves them to pay off some of it now. If they're bringing in some income. I mean, if they're completely shut, a bar and a restaurant are, completely destitute, and they're probably going to be the longest. It's going to take them the longest to get back open in this whole process anyway.
Right.
But in your
restaurants for sure, JJ. Bars, I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
Once they open, they're going to be.
They're going to be but they're also going to be under social distancing orders, and it's going to be like going to the grocery store where they're limiting the number of people, and it's like really, really dead inside the bar, and that's as many people who could be there.
Less than bar.
I have some clients that don't have. They have type 48 licenses. They can only sell alcohol, and so they're completely shut down. They can't even serve food out their little side window. So you're right, JJ. You're exactly right.
Nicholas would like to ask another question. Go ahead, Nicholas.
If you're a tenant who hasn't paid rent and you understand that they'll be collecting unemployment, and there's several tenants or occupants in that unit. Can we request their bank statements for several months to see what kind of money is coming in, and then perhaps to request some kind of proportional payment for the rent?
No.
Is this a reality or is this a hypothetical?
It's reality.
Okay, so I would not go there. If this is a San Francisco tenant, I would not ask for their financial background. They are not obligated to provide that under COVID-19 protections of the Mayor's Order Supplement Number 4. So long as they say to you, I am not being paid, I have my paycheck or my remuneration from my employer, or if they're a gig person from whomever they're working for, is what I use to pay you, then you may not demand that information. If they're willing to give it, fair enough, because that's further evidence that they can't pay it. But you have no right to, quote unquote, glom on to any sort of money that they're receiving, whether it's, if they're divorced and they're receiving settlement funds, that sort of thing. If they say, sorry, I can't pay because of COVID, you have to take that as true.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Josh, do you want to give us an update on the sale market, what you're seeing? Have the conversations with potential buyers for listings gotten a little bit more interesting, or are people changing their perspective? How's it going out there?
Still holding pattern primarily. Most people off to the sides. There's definitely a number of new listings coming out though. So I am noticing people are forging ahead.
Okay.
With vacant properties.
With vacant properties, okay.
With vacant properties, yeah. Nothing occupied. Everything that is occupied is frozen because you can't show it. And you can't sell units you can't show. So people with vacant properties are going in and scheduling showings with the proper protocols in place and masks and gloves and the whole deal. So it's happening. Today, fun fact, I'm doing a sign. It's been really tricky finding a notary that's open. This is not terribly important information, but I've had a hell of a time finding a notary because of the thumbprints. This is how scary it's gotten for folks.
Yeah.
And so I had to do a big workaround, and I was able to find some mobile notary folks who will do it, but it was like Bank of America stopped doing it, UPS stopped doing all my kind of go-to spots in the area. So I am doing a signing today outside on a table in the backyard with masks on, and forging ahead, signing closing docs, and loans are there. Money's still flowing. The credit markets have not completely frozen up yet. So there's a big debate in terms of what I'm reading, whether people should be, if you're a buyer, should you wait it out thinking you're going to get a big discount down the road?
Right.
Which is possible. I think in the Bay Area, it'll be less so. You might see a 10% cut. The worry, though, is also that money is still flowing right now. If the credit markets have problems in 3 months, in 4 months, in 5 months, you may not be able to get the loan you're looking for. So there's everything I'm kind of seeing is a play in terms of, well, maybe now is a good time. The money's flowing, and if the discount is only going to be up to 10%, maybe, or zero, it being the Bay Area, maybe I should just go ahead and try to buy now if my job is secure. And so there's a lot of different ideas. I don't see anybody. I see different players kind of testing the market and trying to see what works, but there's certainly there's no proven method at this point of how to move sales transactions through.
Right. Anybody who didn't absolutely need to buy maybe is on the sidelines and the demand is a lot less. But if the fundamentals of the deal make sense, if the people have enough of a down payment, if they're qualified for a loan, if the property is the right property, the deal can still go through. It's still possible. It's just a little more difficult, and people will go through those hoops.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So we're still working.
Still trying to get the deals done. All right. Any other questions, comments, ideas? Anybody heard a good joke? Yeah, me either. Okay, well, it's really nice talking with everybody. If you want to see the video of these calls, you're welcome to go to our Smart Apartment Advisor channel on YouTube and check it out. I'll upload the video shortly after we're done here. It's nice seeing everybody. Give me a call if you have any questions, and or send me an email. I'll be happy to chat with everybody one-on-one as well. But it's really good to talk with everybody, and hopefully we'll have some more news, maybe some good news at some point soon. And I'll be aiming toward that first week of May to give everybody my May rent collection update and give everybody an idea of what we're up to and how it's going. But take care, everybody. Stay healthy. And we look forward to helping you with issues. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call. Take care.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you and take care.
See you next week, JJ. Hopefully you'll sign into the Golden Gate Breakfast Club. You don't have to leave your house.
Well, I still have kids in the house.
Well, some of the other people do too. Anyway.
Yeah. Hey, Dom. Good to see you, Dom.
Bye.
Bye-bye.